to try and reconceptualize failure is part of the fuel of growth. The growth mindset gives you the fuel to become the best that you can be, and to see failures not as a reason to give up, but as the stepping stones to progress.
糸井です。糸井。いや、多分全然この本がたくさん売れてるってことを初めて知ったという話を。
I did not know this, so I'm very happy.
急に決まったことで、昨日いらっしゃってもう明日帰るっていう状況らしいですね。
That is correct.
なんで来たんですか？
Well, I'm here to give a speech later today, but I'm very honoured to have an opportunity to speak to you, Itoi-san. I've heard a lot about you and what you've achieved here and your influence on Japanese culture. So I'm I feel a great sense of privilege to share a conversation with you, and I'm looking forward to exploring some of the themes in my books. And if I may say so, I'm very grateful for the support you have given to some of my writing.
このシリーズがご本人は日本でそんなに売れてるとは知らなかったっていうお話を聞いたんですけど、日本で最初に売れたのはこの失敗の科学という本で、元のタイトルはブラックボックスシンキングっていうタイトルで、別に失敗の科学とか書いてないんですよね。なんで売れたかっていうのはなんとなくわかるんですけど、とにかく面白かったんですよ。このまま映画にできるんじゃないかというぐらい面白かったです。失敗の科学というふうに書いてビジネス書として売り出したスタイルなんですけど、イギリスでもそういうビジネス書のジャンルなんでしょうか？
Actually, it's sold to business people for sure, but I think also it's very important to have a healthy attitude to failure, not just in business, but in one's life. For young people, older people, life is such a wonderful journey, and if we are terrified of failure, if we're nervous about messing up, we never try anything new. We don't take the risks from which we can learn, and life becomes less about fun and adventure and more about fear. And so I wanted, particularly for younger people, to try and reconceptualize failure as part of the fuel of growth.
最初に事故の話から始まって非常に怖いお話だったんですけれども、でも実際にここに書かれていることって僕らが同じ状況にいたらやりそうなことがたくさん書かれてて、でそれを気づかずにいるっていうことに気づかされたっていう、そういうスタイルだったと思うんですけど。
Yeah, thank you. I think that's right. The book starts with a terrible tragedy of a woman who went for a routine sinus operation, and there was a mistake, and she died. And the husband of the woman who died asked the question, will we learn from this error so that people in the future are not harmed in the same way again? In aviation, this industry, they have a culture of learning. When there are near misses, they are openly reported so that all of the near misses create a big set of data so you can figure out where are the weaknesses, what can we do differently to avert an accident before it's happened. And if there is a crash, every aircraft has a black box which records electronic data, and there's a voice recorder, so you can find out what went wrong and then make reforms so the same mistake never happens again. So it's a culture of learning, and the accident rate has declined. Tragically, in medical culture, they don't have this open learning. And that is why avoidable error is such a big killer.
マシューさんの思考みたいなものがどういうところから 出てきたかっていうと、やはり人間は間違うっていうことについて、散々自分が学んでこられた経験があるんじゃないかというふうに思ったんですね。
That Itoi-san, this is exactly correct, and but perhaps we should learn from the mistakes that are inevitable in life. Point one. Point two, sometimes we should take risks in order to find out new things. Now, of course, we have to be sensible about when we take risks. A pilot coming in on final approach who decided to try something new and risked the lives of the people on the plane is not such a smart idea. A good place to try new things in aviation is not in midair, but in a simulator. There you can learn from making mistakes, but nobody dies.
僕はその最初に失敗の科学を読んで、その後で多様性の科学というタイトルのついたレベルアイディアズ、次の本を読んで、これもまた面白かったんです。で、2冊読んだ頃から僕は自分の会社にこの2冊の書いてあることを応用するようになりました。それ具体的に言うと、失敗できる環境をどう作るか。つまり、トライをするチャンスをどれだけたくさん作れるかっていうのを、チーム作りの核に置いたんですね。とてもそれは、環境そのものが居心地も良くなったし、小さな失敗から互いが学ぶこともできるようになりましたし、小さな失敗に対して恐れなくなったっていう意味で、僕らのグループをとても育ててくれたと思ってるんで、とても感謝してるんです。
Thank you, Itoi-san. That's wonderful to hear. And that phrase that you used, creating a safe environment. I often think about science, which is a great thing. It's created so much of value to our species. When you perform an experiment in science, if you know the result of the experiment before you conduct it, it is not an experiment. When you perform an experiment, you're trying to find out new things. You're trying to push back the frontiers of knowledge. And if the experiment fails, you learn something new. Your hypothesis is violated. It sets the stage for new understanding. And so science creates a safe space to fail well. And I think in companies and in teams, when people feel they can fail, not just in trying something new, but in a team environment, offering an idea. Maybe it's wrong, but as we challenge each other's ideas, we collectively come to a deeper understanding. And I think Itoi-san is right. Often this culture is set by the leader.
マシューさんもスポーツの会社をやっていらっしゃるということで、自分の会社に自分の考えは当然応用なさっていると思うんですけど、それをどんなふうにやっているかっていうことも、失敗の科学、多様性の科学のお話の続きとして、ここには書いてないんですけど、教えていただけたらいいなと思います。
Thank you. Yes, the consultancy is working with businesses, not so much in sport, but in the business world. And a big focus is on mindset. Mindset. A mindset that is learning and willing to fail well as part of growth. And maybe I could just briefly, if you could ask, if I could draw a distinction between the fixed mindset and the growth mindset. So maybe a good way is to tell a story about one of my failures. So in my late 20s, I'm playing table tennis, but I'm beginning to drop down the world rankings. So I think I have to reinvent. And I cold called the Times newspaper. And I said to the sports editor, I am playing in the Olympic Games in a few months' time. Is it possible I could sometimes write in the sports pages of the Times? So I sent an article, and then another article, and then another article. Nothing got published. And then, a few months before the Olympic Games, my first article is published in the sports section of the Times. I was very proud, and I walked to the newsagent and I bought 20 copies to show my friends. But an unintended side effect of this article being published is I got a telephone call from Goldman Sachs, the investment bank. They said, oh, we liked what you said in your article. Please could you come and give a speech to our top traders from around the world about the subject you wrote about? And I'm a table tennis player. And I was like, I don't know if you have heard the phrase imposter syndrome, where you think, me? A table tennis player? A ping pong player speaking to these very eminent traders? I was very nervous. So I had not done very much public speaking before, so I wrote the speech in full. And I went along very nervous, fear of failure. What if I don't get it right? And I'm reading the speech and I'm beginning to lose the room. And maybe 2/3 of the way through, someone heckled. They spoke, this is not for... And I remember getting the train home after a pretty disappointing failure and thinking, if I'm ever invited to give a speech in public again, I'm going to decline. So now, Itoi-san, the difference between the fixed and the growth mindset. The fixed mindset, people think being good is about having the gift, having the talent, having the right DNA. But in this mindset, if you fail, it's very good evidence that you don't have the gift of communication or whatever else. And it becomes rational to give up. The growth mindset, yes, talent matters, but it's what we do with our talents. That's how you grow. And maybe 48 hours after this very humiliating experience, I thought maybe I can improve at public speaking. Maybe I can learn from this experience. And I Googled public speaking practice. And the first hit was an organization called Toastmasters. And it's a global network of clubs where you can go with other people and give talks and learn in a safe space. And I went to my local Toastmaster club and I began to develop the ability to overcome the fear of failure, to read the room, to come up with ideas that might inspire people. I was not very good at the beginning. I failed a lot in a safe space and slowly developed the capacity to communicate. And this, again, I'm not saying I'm the greatest communicator. There are many better communicators than me, but the growth mindset gives you the fuel to become the best that you can be. And to see failures not as a reason to give up, but as the stepping stones to progress. It's a very liberating mindset. And in my business, we try and help people develop a growth mindset of the kind that you, Itoi-san, are creating in this company, where people grow and they challenge themselves. They have safe spaces to learn, and it turns life into an adventure rather than always being crippled by the fear that something might go wrong. Because when you fear this, you don't want to stand and give a talk. You don't want to ask a question in case it shows that you didn't understand something. And it perpetuates non-growth.
ということは、マシューさんの会社のメンバーもそういう心持ちの人を集めてるってことですね。
It can help. And you can measure for growth mindset. There are tools, but you can change your mindset. And sometimes you find someone with great skill. Maybe they're a little bit fixed, but great leadership can nudge them towards the growth path. And you know, the fixed mindset can be of big danger also for very intelligent, talented people. Because if success is about being incredibly talented, perfect, having all the answers, this can be very dangerous because when something goes wrong, instead of seeing this as an opportunity to learn, it can be a very big threat to your ego. If somebody in the team comes up with a fantastic idea, this is the purpose of teamwork. More information in the group than in any one brain. That person's trying to look smarter than me. You become defensive. And leaders can shut down the flow of ideas and the constructive, you know what I mean by constructive dissent that is so important for great team performance. So intelligent people can get stuck in the fixed mindset. Freeing them from that, to work more effectively in teams, to learn from those failures, to listen to their clients. This is where a dramatic shift can occur in the dynamics of an organization.
今のおっしゃっていることは、この 2冊目の多様性の科学という本の現代のレベルアイディアズっていう建設的なっていう言い方もできるんですけど、レベルじゃないアイディアをこう出しなさいっていう話と。
I think, thank you, it's important that the dissent is constructive. Most of the really high value decisions, judgments, strategies, solutions are taken in teams today. And the reason is because the world is complex. And so it's unlikely that one person will have a monopoly of good ideas. Even experts don't have all the good ideas. Leaders, prime ministers, chief executives, that's why you have a team. But in order for the team to function well, if everyone in the team only listens to the leader and never offers a different point of view or an alternative perspective, then the team has only one brain. What's the point of the team?
その今の脳みそが一つしかないっていう言い方はとてもなんかぴったりですね。
Yes. This often happens when the leader has a fixed mindset. Because in a fixed mindset, if it's all about the leader being the most talented, they don't want to hear anything that challenges their perfection. But there's a problem, is if nobody challenges the leader can make mistakes, strategic misjudgments. If, on the other hand, the leader has a growth mindset, is looking to learn, the leader is better at listening. The leader still has to make the decision, because if it's a completely flat organization, there's confusion over who's in charge and nothing gets done. But the leader makes better judgments if they have the ability to listen well, to challenge what people are saying, so they can come up with the best solution overall.
マシューさんご自身のリーダー像はご自分でやってることもそういう考えでやってらっしゃるんですね。
So I try. I'm not always successful to show a growth mindset. And I suppose what I'm really saying is leaders who can show humility, because then the team steps up to share, to discuss. Of course, having listened, having debated, we have to act. An organization is judged on its actions. Then I think a leader can show conviction to go in, implement what we have decided. So perhaps I can put it this way. Leaders who can show humility when evaluating, when strategizing, can also show conviction when executing. And I think I try, often unsuccessfully, to show different characteristics at different points of what you might call the decision-making cycle.
今の考え方を僕はもう全くその通りだなと思って聞いてるんですけど、社会そのものの価値観のっていうのはなかなかそうではないっていう状況は日本では当然あるんですけど、イギリスでもあるんでしょうね。
I worry a little bit about younger people. The social media. Often people make their lives look wonderful. Great holidays, great meals. If a photo doesn't look perfect, you can touch it up and edit it. And there is a problem with this. If young people think life is about looking and acting perfectly, they're going to be very nervous of looking less than perfect and stop trying new things and taking risks.
この本のこの現代のこう流れを見ていて、最初にマシューさんがお出しになった本のタイトルはバウンスっていう本で、跳ね返すっていう意味だと思うんですけど、これがデビュー作だったってことを最近知りまして、全部の中にこう何か固く決まったものがあると、それに対してボールが跳ね返るようにバウンスしてるっていうか、跳ね返してやれっていう、こうそうじゃないアイデアを出そうとしてるっていうデビューから、失敗の科学、多様性の科学というふうに進んできたんだなっていうことで、一貫していらっしゃるなと思って聞いてたんですけど。
Itoi-san, that's exactly correct. They're very related books. Bounce, that talent is important, but in Western culture particularly, overrated. Black box thinking, failure as a path to growth, rebel ideas, different points of view to help us understand the world in a more effective way. And you mentioned Japan. I heard a statistic earlier today that 70% of young people in Japan fear failure. I think this is understandable, but freeing young people from the fear of failure is so important, because the world is changing. And if we seek to never fail, we will never harness the opportunities of this world that we're living in today. And I think there's a huge opportunity for this great country by shifting the mindset from a little bit towards the fixed, more towards the growth. And I think it's interesting, if I may say so, that the psychological world that you inhabit becomes different if you don't have a crippling fear of failure, we're talking today, and I'm enjoying very much. But people watching might not know there is 1, 2, 3, 4 cameras. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 people observing. There are cameras and people are taking notes. And imagine if we're talking nervous about making a mistake. Think of how stiff, how difficult to use the imagination, to show empathy. But when you, in the air, you're less scared of making mistakes. It's part of how we learn together. The whole feel is transformed, and it makes the conversation easier. It helps us to grow together. You learning from me and me from you. And when I look sometimes at young people so scared of failing, it seems to me, and I don't wish to exaggerate, a tragedy. Because they're missing out on some of the joy and collaboration of life.
マシューさんのメッセージの中に隠れたメッセージのように、誰でもがチャンスがあるはずだっていう信じ方があると思ってるんですけど、それはご自身がイギリスのある若者だった時から卓球のオリンピックの選手になるまでの自分が経験なさったこととかが元になって強く言えるようになったことだと思うんですけど、ご自身の体験とどこにでもいる何でもない若者たちに対して君に必ずチャンスがあるよって言える信じ方っていうのはやはり自分のスポーツの体験は大きかったですか？
Yes, Itoi-san, that's right. And when I look at my life, in table tennis and in journalism and in writing, I'm struck by 2 things. One, the importance of mindset and liberation from fear of failure. We've talked about that. The other thing is gratitude for the people who help you along the way. My first table tennis coach, who gave so much time as a volunteer to help develop. My parents, who loved their children and were very keen for us to have great lives and never blamed if we failed. They loved when we tried things, even if we failed. And in journalism and writing, the people, and I think, yes, mindset is very important, but I think when one has been successful, there is a responsibility to try and help the next generation take the chances too.
ありがとうございます。なんて言うんだろうな、みんなが読んだら必ずその人その人に影響を与えるようなタイプの本だったと僕は思ってるんです。ですからとても優れてる人がもっとキャリアを上げるために読むというよりは、何でもない人たちそれぞれが、自分のいる場所から成長する読み方ができる本だと思ってます。しかもマシューさんがおっしゃる、僕も思ってることですけど、これからはチームの時代で人々が集まって何かを力を出すっていう時代だから、それぞれの役割は今まで以上にたくさんあると思うんです。さらに他の国の人々、遠く離れた人とでもチームを組めるような時代でもある。これはやっぱりなんて言うんだろうな、未来は暗いよっていう話ばっかり聞いてる中で、なんか自分はどうしようかなっていう自分のことでニコニコできる希望を持てるようなきっかけになると思うんで、僕はマシューさんが今までやられてきた仕事っていうのは自分にも影響を与えましたし、たくさんの人たちにこれからも大きな影響を与えていくんじゃないかなと思ってます。
Itoi-san, thank you.
最後に一つだけ違う話で質問なんですけど、僕らのやってる会社の仕事が アメリカとヨーロッパでこのところ急に興味を持たれてるっていう現象があるんですけど、日本のカルチャーについてこのところ随分と影響来てるぞという、そういう印象はありますか？
And may I ask, Itoi-san, the interest in Europe and the United States was organic? In other words, spontaneous? Or was there a marketing program? Because the reason I ask, I think there is, in the UK, Europe and America, deep interest in Japan and Japanese culture. It's a great country and a profoundly impressive historical civilization. I think, I don't know if Itoi-san agrees, there's untapped potential here after the last 2 or 3 decades. And I think it's going to be strategically a very important nation. So I'm not surprised that your work is of great interest in Europe and the United States. But I would be interested in knowing, did it just happen? Or was there something behind it?
僕らにとってはかなり自然とです。
And also, congratulations. It's a remarkable achievement. And I think, I've been reading a lot about you, and it's intriguing to understand what you're doing. So I look forward to hearing more about your success and remaining in touch.
何かね、あるといいですね。イギリスにまた行くかもしれませんからよろしくお願いします。
Well then, I will interview you in the UK, and perhaps we can have a rectangular table and play a bit of ping pong too.
これはちょっと逃げ出すかもしれません。ありがとうございました。お時間もない中で本当にありがとうございました。
Thank you very much.